I want to warn you about this show this evening. Not warn, I want to do something like a disclaimer. My guest has been on before, and you are all very interested in him and his work. He is the author of a book called The Ringer, and of course, that is located on the Truth Denied website. And of course, he's all linked up on the Truth Denied website, so feel free to go and download any of the information. We will have an article on this particular show probably up by tomorrow, and of course, the archive. Listen up, though. You know, it is amazing the amount of people that I'm speaking with in the last couple of months who are talking about people like James Gilliland, who are talking about the Archon race, people like my guest, Jim Bowden, who are talking about alien mind control and such. Even Whitley Strieber was on Coast to Coast last evening, and he was talking about a few things. And of course, you know, he has not had, he was asked the question last night, Whitley Strieber was, he was asked the question if he found the beings to be, you know, a good experience for him. He had experiences with alien beings for 11 years. He had a very controversial book that was turned into the movie as well. And it scared the heck out of me when I first saw it, I got to tell you. I'm losing the name of the movie now. If anybody knows it, just post it in the chat room, or Thomas, if you know it. I can't remember the name of the movie at the moment. It's slipping my mind. But anyway, the point is it was about his abductions. And when Whitley Strieber came forward with that movie and the book, he was, you know, really put down for being crazy or whatever. Thank you, Thomas. The movie was Communion. Any of you remember that? It scared the heck out of me because he had some really nasty interactions with aliens. But he was asked last night, you know, were they benevolent or, you know, whatever. And he said, you know, they weren't all that bad, but he didn't have the best, you know, once he got to know them over the 11-year period. But he did feel they were dangerous. And I thought that was really interesting of Whitley Strieber to say. So what I want to convey to you as well is that I'm getting a lot of people who write in about gang stalking or RFID chips. You know, Whitley Strieber has a chip in the back of his right ear, behind his ear, and he talked about that last night too. He's never had it removed. A doctor tried to remove it many years ago, and when the doctor tried to remove it, the chip moved further up the behind of Whitley's ear, and then it went back to where its old location was over time. So he's never had it, you know, successfully removed. But I want to say, when we're talking about this subject matter, of course, we talked about it on Friday's show, last Friday's show with Alfred Weber as well. There are different types of control. There's, you know, MK Ultra that the military used. And of course, you know, I interviewed a military man who worked out of Fort Benning, actually 4 of them, who the last of them has now died May 30th, John Vasquez, God rest his soul. All of those gentlemen within a year and a half of my interview. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not trying to have that point put across. My point is all of them are dead now. They have passed on, and they were younger. So except for Captain Sergeant James Major James Norton. He was a little bit older, but everybody else was fairly younger. So they all told me about what mind control was with MK Ultra and all the rest of it, and even what the military had done, and some of the stuff that they didn't know what was real and what was real and what wasn't real. And then you've got the gang stalking. I've worked with people like Jesse Beltram has been on the show, and Lars Drudgard from Denmark, who are also working with scanning individuals for communication devices or RFID chips. And these individuals all have one thing in common. They're being basically stalked via the internet, when they go anywhere in person, and a little bit of mind control that causes them a lot of stress. And it's I get a lot of emails about this too. We interviewed 2 wonderful women in Europe, Melanie Rachon, who is now heading up is part of the movement in Belgium, as well as Marie Pollock, who also was somebody who's was having issues with possibility of gang stalking and being chipped. I want you to know I do thorough conversations and investigations with these individuals, and it is a bloody shame what is happening all over the world. Some of them are, this is American technology, or it's human technology. And then, of course, my guest tonight is going to talk about alien technology. I'd like you to keep an open mind if you are one of these individuals who has this issue, meaning that you are sure that you are being stalked, or you are sure that something is going on and that you are being misguided, or your dreams are being taken away from you and being replaced with nightmares, or you've been taken out of your body at night and taken somewhere else that you did not sign up to go to. If you are one of these people, this is what I want to say to you right before this show, because what Jim has to talk about is kind of spooky. I don't want you to be afraid. That's what I'm saying to you. I do not want you to be afraid. I want you to know that we're here to help. And I want you to know that we are aware of a global something going on, whether it be alien technology or human technology. To me, it doesn't matter. Both are violations and both are crimes against humanity, no matter what or who designed them. So keep that in mind during the course of this show this evening, of what Jim is going to reveal more of. And let me give you just a little bit of background on Jim, so that it qualifies Jim to even have this conversation with all of us, okay? Again, he is linked up on the Truth Denied website. Now, again, he has the book recently is out on Amazon. We have all the information if you want to purchase the book. The book is called The Ringer. The Ringer was published in October of 2012. And listen, in April of 2012, astronomers Paul Davies and Robert Wagner, who are affiliated with Arizona State University, filmed 5 large UFOs flying over the surface of the moon. I'm going to stop right there for a moment. We recently had Jose Escamilla, Bill Brayson, and Sean Gautreaux on the show. They are also talking about the moon. They are also talking about action on the moon. So see, you'll have a lot of people who are experiencing and documenting some facts for all of us, proof for all of us. Again, James Gilliland, his recent video that I published with him, again, just in June, these objects that are flying around in our skies, that don't appear to be even exotic military aircrafts because of how they're moving around and how far out in the stratosphere they are. So many different people are coming together on this planet and putting forth some incredible information, as my guest this evening will. Now, even though Paul Davies is a theoretical physicist and a cosmologist, who's now involved in astrobiology, and Robert Wagner is affiliated with ASU's School of Earth and Space Exploration, U.S. mainstream media did not consider this scientific research to be newsworthy. Again, what I want to say in here is that alternative media is beginning to pick up the gap of where mainstream media globally will not report. So it is very important that radio stations like Revolution Radio continue to stay on the air, continue to put out the evidence and the facts to you, the public. This is very important for all of us together, as humanity goes, to stick together. All right? We must stick together, and we must continue to support, either by listening or sharing the information with others, so that more and more people can get validated. Because many of us knew this all along. All these stories, like Snowden, for instance, we all knew that we're being wiretapped. But then Snowden came out and said, "Well, it's a fact, people," and validated. So all of the information, in other words, that's coming out today is for our benefit, not to make us go cuckoo, not to make us go crazy, not to make us afraid, not to make us crawl under a rock, to give us empowerment. All right? So just keep that in mind. Now, back to the Ringer. While scientific discoveries of this magnitude should be front page news, right? They're purposely buried, preventing any educated knowledge regarding extraterrestrials. People are encouraged to trust their eyes and ears regarding every material object around themselves except for UFOs. Isn't that interesting? While a plane certainly looks like a plane and a helicopter looks like a helicopter, UFOs have been socially controlled and are seen as anything but a UFO within the United States, which means unidentified flying object. Doesn't mean that it's ET. We have been conditioned, we the people, have been conditioned to dismiss the global extraterrestrial aerial phenomenon, while the idea of an extraterrestrial presence is still ridiculed. The book, The Ringer, examines how extraterrestrials can and do mentally influence people. I can buy that. I believe that. If you haven't been abducted or been in contact with extraterrestrials, you may find this book shocking. For those who have had contact with extraterrestrials, you will understand, says Jim Bowden. I want to thank Jim for his courage to write such a book, for the ridicule that he has had in the past, just as Whitley Strieber has had. But for those of you out there who have had contact and who do know what Jim is saying is the truth, that's who Jim is here for. He's here to validate your experience. And you know what the rest of you can do. Anyway, I want to welcome the wonderful author of The Ringer. A pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, Mr. Jim Bowden. Welcome.
Thanks, Rocky. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Listen, I want to thank you so much for your work. And I am so sorry for the experiences that you have had, but I must say you're a brave man. You're very courageous to come forward and continue to educate those around us. And of course, there are many who know exactly what you're talking about. And I want to jump right into this.
Well, first I have to say that what I said when we were off the air about you is that you're doing a hell of a job helping people understand all of this. If it's on Facebook or on the radio or all over the place, and I really mean that. I mean, I'm very impressed with you're very active in this, and it's very good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. And that's what we're all together active. You know what I mean? So thank you. I appreciate it. Just give us a rundown quickly for those of you people who are listening who do not know the book. Just give us a quick summation of what The Ringer is about and how it came to be. Why did you write it?
Oh, do you want me to? I got a lot in front of me here. You sure want me to go back to The Ringer?
I said a brief summation, couple minutes. Give me a couple minutes on it. My
son and I were mentally attacked in Arizona in the fall of 2011, and that was mentally attacked by extraterrestrials. And it was quite an ordeal. We had never experienced anything like that before. No one believed us. They took Sam off to a mental ward for children. They said that I was psychotic, and it was the usual. That's the normal way it goes if something like that happens. So after that is when The Ringer started, and it lasted about 3 months. And I didn't call it The Ringer. I called it The Gauntlet, because that's what I thought of it. But they said, no, it is The Ringer, so they let me know that. And anyway, it's a very torturous situation. I don't think that had they not cheated so much. See, here's something that's going to equate to us like it did with The Ringer, I think. There's a lot of cheating going on here, a lot. There's too much bad going on here, way too much. Now, for me, in the Ringer, when the bad guys took advantage of you over and over and over and over, that opened the door for the good guys to step in. And it did, and they did step in. So I think that we might have that same opportunity here because there's just too much bad stuff going on with the government, the military, the whole thing. You know, you're talking about implants and all kinds of crazy stuff now. So I think that we might get some help. I hope we do.
I do too, and I think that you're right there, Jim. I think that there are many things, and I think if we have some time at the end of the show, I would like to talk about a couple of things that I've heard that are really, really helping. But let's just dive into the subject matter because we do have so much to cover. Your main concern, as you said off the air right before the show, sleep texting. What is sleep texting, and what is going on?
Okay, it's very important, I think, because it actually proves extraterrestrial possession or alien possession of children. Now, let's talk about what sleep texting is not. Okay, sleep texting is not you, a child being asleep, somebody texting them or calling them on their phone, waking them up, and that child then texting that person back. That's not sleep texting. That's just texting. It is also not sleepwalking. People like to equate it to that. It's not. Sleepwalking doesn't require much mental activity at all. Sleep texting, you have to structure sentences. You have to spell correctly. You have to have the dexterity in your fingers to hit the right buttons to form a sentence, hit send, and send it off to your contact, whoever that might be, while you're asleep, while you're unconscious. Now, number one, that's impossible. You can't do it. Children cannot do that. Yet society has accepted this as some sort of child phenomena that they are allowing to happen and live with it. They should not. They should take a hard look at what's going on. If children are unconscious, they can't sleep text, play the banjo, play Monopoly, anything. They're asleep. The only way that a child can sleep text is if they're possessed. There's no other way.
Wow. So
there's no other way. It's an impossibility.
Oh my goodness. So are they unaware that they're doing it?
Yes. When they wake up the next morning, they find out from their friends that they were texted and things like that. But they say, "Well, I was asleep. I have no memory of it at all." And psychologists have looked at it. The kids and even adults who have been in research clinical facilities, they are in fact clinically asleep when all of this is going on.
Wow.
So that is absolutely impossible. You cannot be asleep and text somebody. You can't do it. Yet, supposedly, 20% of the kids are doing it. Now, there's a difference between possession and influence with extraterrestrials. Because with influence couldn't allow for this. Influence can make you think a certain way, can make you act a certain way, make a certain decision, vote a certain way, if you're in Congress, for example. But it can't make you, you can't do anything unconsciously as far as forming sentences, spelling words, and then hitting the right keys on a cell phone. That requires possession.
Oh my goodness! Now, do you know at all? I just have to ask: are the kids' parents or the kids afraid of what's happening?
No one is really zeroed in on this. Everybody is doing what they do with everything else. You know, we built FEMA camps and we all look the other way. Why do we have them? No one else in the world has them except us, and we look the other way. You know, it's like it's FEMA. They built camps. Well, let's keep on going. Well, you shouldn't. I mean, why do you have them? You know, nobody else has them but us. Well, same thing with sleep texting. Nobody's paying attention.
That's uncanny. So, would it be something that someone should bring to the forefront or get people taking a look at that? I mean, can I ask, are the texts that they're texting anything strange?
Yeah, I can read you some. I don't have
you?
it in front of me.
When you find
yeah,
them,
I've written
love
them
to hear
down.
them.
In fact, I tell you what, I can quote them, frankly. They're taken from CNN, okay? They had 4 quotes. One of them said, "The bullets in my teddy bear look funny." The other one said, "WTF," you know what that means?
Yeah.
WTF is with these little bombs. Now, children usually aren't talking about bullets when they're asleep or bombs. I'm telling you, that's alien.
Wow. Now, what caused CNN to do the report or the article?
Well, there's a few, Roxy, you can find tons of reports on sleep texting.
On sleep texting.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's tons of information out there. The only problem is nobody looks at it head on. I mean, the bottom line is they keep avoiding the truth, and the truth is there has to be an outside mental force that's making this happen. These children are unconscious. They cannot do it.
This is that's bizarre. And it doesn't sound like, they're just doing it and then pretending they didn't do it so they won't get in trouble, because it's kind of a bizarre.
Oh no, it actually I did read that supposedly 20% of the kids do it. Okay, they do sleep text. So that's a lot. To me, it's very, very diabolical. We have our kids are innocent. They're sleeping and their minds are being intruded on. And actually somebody is, using them to function and write words or little bombs or bullets or whatever messages they want to send with our children. So I think people should pay attention to that.
Yeah, no doubt. It's interesting that they wouldn't. I mean, if my kid was texting in their sleep, but I can see where they'd be like so busy and say, "Well, gosh, that's kind of weird,"
But the psychiatric community does their normal thing. I read an article from Psychology Today, and this doctor said. He said something like, well, it interrupts their sleep. It's not good for this reason, that reason. Children need their sleep, yada, yada, yada. But he never talks about the fact they can't do it. They cannot do it themselves. It's impossible.
What would be the reason for it? What would be the reason for this influence? What are they trying to influence the kids?
It's aliens just getting away with it. They're just getting away with it. They know how we are. We look at logic. We look at reason. We look at analysis. We look at empirical evidence. We look at the right side of the brain only. They know that. We will find any reason we can to say this is no big deal, and I understand it, and don't worry about it. I'm a psychologist. Okay? And then it's over. We don't talk about it after that. Well, guess what? They've been doing it for years. We have to start looking. Use the left side of your brain. Use your intuition. Use the intuitive side of your brain. You'll never understand this phenomenon, this alien phenomenon, if you don't. You have to think like they do. You have to.
That's tough.
And that's what they do. They could care less about reason. They're all about magic.
And welcome back, Jim. We were just talking about. You just said it before the breaks about the aliens. They use magic, like the Greys. Can you talk about that? The magic.
Their entire environment is built on magic. They live. Their whole world is, frankly, black magical, but it's magical, and that's what they use to operate. And they're very good at it. Very good at it.
Are they like tricksters? Well,
they are tricky. Yeah, they're tricksters. I'll give you one example. I've been working on a new book. Yesterday I was writing on, it's called openoffice.org. It's not Word, it's Open Office. But anyway, when I would write the word "the," they would immediately spell out the Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. Okay, that's the book, like from the book.
Yeah.
And they did it in blue, in bright blue, and they would, every time they wrote "the," they would just spread that out in bright blue on my computer screen. So I don't know. They did it like 5 or 6 times, but I don't know if that's magic. But I kind of think it's stupid. But they are capable of. Well, I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to tell you this. I was at a titty bar in Texas. Okay.
Oh.
All right, now, and there were stages all over the place, and this girl was on a stage in front of me, and I looked at her, and then looked down for just a second, and when I looked back up, it was a different girl. That's big time magic. That is big time magic. It is.
Okay.
That is big time. Yeah.
James Gilliland out at ESETI Ranch, he also said that they're very, whenever he has any computer issues or he can't upload a video or, he's having problems emailing me, for instance, back and forth, he said they know technology and they get in it and they live in it. And they just screw around with everything, and then generally he knows how to deal with it because he knows what it is, and it's not just typical, computer problems. He knows like their sort of signature on it. So I think that's really interesting. Alien influence versus alien possession. Can you give us a clue about that?
Well, I kind of went over that in sleep texting. The difference is with influence. For example, the Supreme Court recently voted to maintain a ruling that they did in 2011, which allows pharmaceutical companies, 80% of them, to be held not liable for anything, for any reason at all. Now, the pharmaceutical industry is the third most profitable industry in the United States. That's factoring in litigation, okay? Even factoring in lawsuits. They're still the third largest, most profitable industry. Why in the world would the Supreme Court use us as guinea pigs? Because that's what they're doing. If there is no liability, they can put anything they want in a pill, kill you, and then make another one.
Why would you think
Honestly.
that was alien influence?
Well,
and not
because
just
of the decision,
psychopathic.
because of the Supreme Court decision, I don't think that humans would do that to the population. I think that it is alien influence, and I think that they probably have designs on that whole idea. If pharmaceuticals are nobody's held responsible for what they make, and they're not now because of the Supreme Court, then if aliens wanted to sort of get involved with their way of making pharmaceuticals, and they can do that. Then we could be in trouble.
And then alien possession would obviously be like the sleep texting where somebody does something and doesn't even remember it.
Well, yes, possession. He sent you pictures of George Bush, right?
Yes.
Can you tell which one doesn't look like him?
No.
You can't?
I can't, no.
Okay, all right. Sometimes Alfred the other day had mentioned an eye movement with Dr. Greer, and he thought that was a telltale sign of possession. I can see it, but I understand some visuals that not everybody understands, and that's only because of having gone through the RINGER and also being familiar with the human ETs, because they kind of help me with that too. But it's an acquired taste, should I say, to be able to look at someone and tell, or mostly by photographs, not even in person, but mostly by photographs.
Like, okay,
if they are.
Like which one? Because you sent me 3. I'm looking at them right now. Why can't I tell the difference of the 3? I mean, they all. Honestly.
Look at the one with the profile, and look at his eyes. It's always in the eyes. Always.
Okay. So the one where he's looking to the right and smiling.
Yes. It's a profile shot of him. Yes. Yeah. Now Obama has a similar.
His eyes are black.
Well, that picture doesn't look, even though it's his face, it doesn't look like George Bush.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I'm looking at it, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like somebody else. If you look at his eyes, it looks like a different person.
Yeah.
Compared to the other shots.
Compared to the other 2 shots you sent, yes, I have to agree with that. But you know what? The one that has 43 on it, George W. Bush, that one kind of doesn't look like him either.
Okay, well, there are, if you go through Google, if you go to images and look him up, you can find pictures of him that really don't look anything like him as far as his eyes go. And the same thing with Obama. You can.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be possession. They don't always stay in the individual. They don't have to. They can come in when they need to if there's some dialogue that they need to be present for. And then if that dialogue's finished, they leave. They don't necessarily stay in that individual all the time.
That's also right in check and with many others who have been coming on the show saying the same thing. They come and go. They're not there for just ever and so forth. Let's talk about FEMA camps. You know, you did mention that a little bit earlier, but you have some real, background information for us. And I did post some of that, all of these executive orders, let's say. Again, in regards to FEMA camps and the Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation, control of highways and seaports, allows the government to seize and control communication media, 10995. These orders go on and on. Another one that allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. Another order that allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Another one that allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. And the list goes on.
How about they organize? You know, they organize us into work brigades. That's what it says.
Okay, so you're saying in regards to this that you don't think our own government would do this without some sort of alien influence?
I'm positive they wouldn't.
Really? You stand
positive.
on that?
I'm positive they wouldn't. There is no way. If you go back, even just as far back as the 1970s, no one thought like this. No one had 1,000 FEMA camps that hold on average 22,000 people scattered around the country. For us, we built them for ourselves. That is insane. It's crazy. No other country's doing it. Only us. Why just us? Because we've been influenced. It's like Alfred said on his show. We have been targeted like there's no tomorrow as far as aliens go. And so they're influencing. They just did it with the Supreme Court regarding that decision. They do it with Congress to allow these laws to be enacted. They do it with, look at NSA and FEMA, who just really run the country now, don't they?
I'd have to say you're right. Yeah.
Well,
that and military industrial complex.
It is all of it. It really is. You have to understand that it's not. These people are innocent. The government is innocent. They have been worked over mentally. They really have.
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that. Let me interject here. It's interesting that you say that because the House Speaker yesterday actually said the words, and I started laughing. He actually said the words. The Majority House Leader actually said the Senate is broken.
I saw that.
Right? We just don't hear insiders who've been around for many, many, many moons talk about how something is broken. And is it possible, Harry Reid, I think it was, is it possible that he's not only telling the truth, but is it possible that he's trying to send a message to citizens?
No. He's not sending a message. He's just looking at it through his own eyes. And some people are more effective than others. Not everybody in Congress, for example, Alan Grayson, there's no way they could influence him. There's just no way. It would be impossible. Aliens could not get to him at all. But there's very few people like that in government. So overall, yes, they've had their way with voting, because look what's happened. You have FEMA camps everywhere. We wouldn't have those things. We wouldn't have FEMA camps without aliens.
Well, the only thing that I can add to that is that we did have a Nazi Germany. We did have a Hitler. We did have millions of people murdered.
Roxy, look at it like a board game. Okay, for the aliens. They come to Earth, and it really is a board game for them. Now, what you brought up was World War II. Now, that was quite an exciting board game for them. They had concentration camps. They had gas chambers. They were murdering children. They wiped out millions of people. That was a hell of a board game. They've got one going on now in the United States. When you have FEMA camps, 1,000 of them, to put us in, and that's what they're for, that's a board game too.
All right. Okay. So let's go with that thought. What are handcuffed suicides?
Well, there have been 3 of these that have happened. I think it's just something that people should pay attention to, because if kids are sitting in the back seat of a police car and they're handcuffed, and then all of a sudden they're dead because they shot themselves in the head, I would pay attention to that. Number one, it's impossible. You're handcuffed. You can't shoot yourself in the head. I guess cops are executing them. But it has happened at least 3 times. It just goes by everybody. Oh, is that what happened? Okay, well, what's on the next page? Okay, well, guess what? Turn back. A kid was handcuffed in the back seat of a police car, and they're saying that he committed suicide with a gun and shot himself in the head. That is impossible.
Do you think that, as far as that goes, do you think that the police state that we're in is also this alien board game?
Absolutely. Yeah, you may not like my analogy of a board game. I think it works pretty well, only from their point of view. Okay, it does sound cryptic, I know. But from their point of view, you got to remember, these things look at us like lab rats. They have for a long time. I mean, they've been here for thousands of years. They've done whatever they wanted. They had the Spanish Inquisition. They've done the bubonic plague. They've done what they wanted to do. And so they look at this almost like a board game. They shouldn't, but they do.
Can I ask, is our government or are our world governments privy to this?
Well, you're asking who knows about this?
Yeah, I want to know if our government knows that these aliens are really wreaking havoc.
I don't think so. I don't know. I keep going to. I hear different things about the government. I've heard that they've had a falling out, and I did see a video on YouTube where we did fire on a UFO. I saw a missile head for that UFO. I don't know. I've heard we've had the underground situation where we have aliens underground.
Yes.
I've heard that there has been a falling out, but I don't know. I really don't know for sure. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. What about the worldwide collapsed buildings? What's that all about? And where are these collapsed buildings?
They're all over the place, especially in India. What these are, an alien, let me kind of preface this a little bit. They will never take responsibility for anything at all. Any accident, any murder, anything that goes bad. They're going to make sure that we have another finger to point at something else besides them. Now, with collapsed buildings, what's happening is, I looked at one the other day. It was a hotel. It was a very good-looking hotel. I looked at it prior to the collapse, and it was well-maintained and a very, good business. They had a very good business, well-maintained hotel, very well-built, and then, poof, it collapses. Okay? Now, if you have a collapsed building, you can blame that on anything. General contractor, construction, materials, anything at all. Therefore, if aliens wanted to collapse buildings, they could do it all day long, and we're always going to find reasons why it was anything but an alien. That's how it is. Now, they had been doing that in Philadelphia especially. In Philadelphia, 3 houses collapsed in 1 week, but there are a lot of collapsed buildings in Philadelphia and all over the world, but a lot in India. Their big one in India was...
And it has nothing to do with, Okay. And it has nothing to do with, the ground sinking or the sinkholes or this or that. I mean, literally...
No, Roxy, they're out of the blue. All of them. They're out of the blue. Now, there was one in Philadelphia. I heard of a rumbling prior to a collapse in Philadelphia. So maybe that had something to do with a little earthquake or something. I don't know. But overall, it's just essentially out of the blue. There is no rhyme or reason. They just collapse. And I'm certain by the look of the ruins of these things that extraterrestrials are involved with it. You can tell they leave a mark. They really do. They call it a mark. That's what they call it. They have their own mark. And you can tell, for example, in Boston, there was tons of white smoke after the bombing. That's alien. In Texas, at the fertilizer plant, tons of white smoke. That's alien. It was also nuked, and you can see the picture of the nuclear cloud above the fertilizer plant.
Uh-huh.
But white smoke is also a telltale sign of their work. Yeah.
The Texas fertilizer plant killed a number of people as well.
Yes, it did. And if I'm serious. What I'm talking about as far as white smoke goes, look up Boston on Google Images. Look up the fertilizer plant. You will see lingering white smoke all over the place. And that does not occur.
So you basically,
in a normal situation.
Jim, if I'm understanding this correctly, with all of these types of incidences, what you're finding is finding that not all buildings that collapse or all this or all, you're saying that sometimes you'll see a signature of an influence, that something was random.
No, you're exactly right there. I'm sorry if I misled you. No, not every collapse of building is
right.
due to aliens. That's not true. But no, they have had, here's the thing. What I would recommend is this. Instead of us saying, well, could it have been the contractor, look at it this way. How much volume of collapsed buildings do you have here? What is the volume?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What is the volume? Is it happening? How many do you have? Tons of them? Why? Well, then go from there.
Mm-hmm. And if there's no earthquakes or earth movement or real sort of, but structural engineers go in our country anyway. I mean, it's not like I want to have a big debate about this, and go in and see, what might have happened. And in a lot of places, a lot of incidences, I should say. But places like India, I mean, it's across the board. I mean, the building techniques, it's just like Chile. It's like a lot of other countries, Mexico. The building standards are a lot lower, so sometimes things just,
Well,
collapse.
that's why I mentioned looking at this building, this hotel, prior to the collapse. It was
right.
in pristine condition. Pristine condition, really. Nothing
so it didn't
wrong.
have cracks, it didn't have this, it didn't have that.
No, it was well maintained, a very good enterprise as far as the business goes. They were very busy. It's called City Lights is the name of it. Mm-hmm. And they, very good looking. I sent the pictures to a friend of mine and had him look at it. And I said, I don't buy this. And he came back and said he didn't either. Because there was no reason for that building to be rubble at all.
And what's this Quebec train blast?
Well, that just recently happened, and I'm still kind of working on that. It's just very odd because the train was locked in place. And this is prior to going into town and derailing in the center of the town. It was locked into place 7 miles away. And air brakes are held locked by air compressors. Air compressors run on electricity. Electricity is an alien's best friend. It did go 7 miles before derailing in the center of the town. Also, when it got into town, the engine didn't derail when it made the turn. Okay, it stayed in place, which was unusual. And further back, it derailed. But more than that, I have in front of me right now a picture of a UFO leaving the scene at a high rate of speed, and right in front of the fire department.
In relationship to this train.
Yes. Yeah. This is a UFO. No question about it. And
you need to send that.
It's moving very quickly. I can send it to you. But at any rate, you can see the fire still blazing in a train car, and you can see this UFO just gone. I mean, it's just headed out.
Wow.
So,
and it did explode. I mean, this was a huge explosion as well.
Yes, it was.
Fire.
But there's so many things about it that don't really add up. For example,
what are they saying about it?
Well,
They're saying, for one, that it's the most.
Well, here's the problem I have with it. Roxy, it went 7 miles before it decided to derail in the center of the town. Why didn't it derail prior to that? You know, why did it have to be the center of town? It had 7 miles to think about it. You know? So I can't really, you know, I'm not certain on that one at all, but I do have this UFO that's leaving the scene. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one.
Well, what they did say, they said it is the most devastating rail accident in Canadian history. So it's definitely a big one. I put a link into the chat room for everybody, and it happened only 2 days ago. So, you know, I'm looking at what they're saying it could have been, and it sounds sort of, I'm sorry, you know, kind of bogus. They're saying that the conductor allegedly didn't apply enough brakes to secure the 10,000-ton load of crude oil while he went to sleep in a nearby hotel. It doesn't make sense.
But Roxy, something had to unlock the brakes. The air compressor, which holds the brakes locked, okay, the air compressor runs on electricity.
That
is what aliens work with. They do work with electricity.
Yeah, that is weird. This isn't just any old train accident. This is like really bizarre. It took off by itself.
It is.
That is kind of weird.
You know, one other thing regarding the Boston Marathon, we don't have bombs that can blow off the legs of 23 people. We don't make a bomb like that. We don't have them.
Wow. I've got a quick question. I'm getting, you know, some action here coming forward from the chat room. Do you know anything about Dr. Greer? And the question is, do you think that Dr. Greer has always been possessed, or has he been possessed in response to his vocalization of disclosure? I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
Well, I think if they tried to take him out, he had cancer. Right. And they can give you cancer if they want to. I think they tried to take him out, but he survived it. His longtime sidekick friend, she died from it. Same thing he had. In fact, 3 people had the same kind of cancer, but he did survive it. There's nothing he can do about being possessed. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. But I don't think that he's constantly possessed. I don't know
24/7.
That is.
Well, is he a good guy or a bad guy?
I have a problem with him only because he's so gung-ho on telepathy. And he doesn't realize that he's got, like his deal in the desert he's going to do. He takes all those people out there with his little handheld iPhone or whatever. Here's how we get contact. He sells those things. It's really crazy, I think. But anyway, they have no clue who they're going to be talking to if they make contact at all. Everybody's okay. Everybody's benevolent. There is no problem here. We can contact everybody because the universe is beautiful. They're gonna get in trouble. There are grays around here, in case you didn't know it, and there's lots of them.
Right. It's kind of a Ouija board experience. Hey, come on, everybody. Let's play the Ouija and open up a portal and see what comes through.
Rocky, I tried to get a hold of him. I did talk to his press agent to say, hey, slow down, you guys, you know. But they won't even let you go into their group unless you sign something saying everything's cool. You know, there's nothing bad in the universe. And then you can join them. But otherwise, you can't join them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very controversial, his latest film, Sirius. It's quite controversial as well. And they're you know, I don't like to talk bad about anybody, to be honest with you. So it just came from the audience, and I didn't know how you felt about it, but that's actually fair enough.
I think his movie's a good idea, and I think it'll hopefully do some good because it'll open eyes. I hope it will. Every day, you know, I'm praying for disclosure every day. You know, I mean, I don't know about you, I am.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, I have my own thoughts about it. Somebody else just in the chat room had said that the Asiana plane crash lost the roof of the plane, but it only had bumped its tail. Do you know anything about that? Because I don't.
Is that in San Francisco?
I don't know.
I think it was, wasn't it? I believe it was.
That must have been, yes, it must have been the one that hit itself. So was that maybe one of them?
Well, I didn't look at it, to be honest with you. I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't gone over
pay any attention to it. I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
All right. Yeah, that was an odd one anyway, regardless.
I would like to say, though, as far as I brought up their mark, they really do have a mark.
The alien
and
mark?
It's oh, yes. As far as the human ETs go, I mean, they can see it like night and day. I mean, they can just, there it is. I think one of the best examples was as far as a picture goes. And see, here's the thing. If I see a headline, I'll read a little bit about the article, but I'll go direct.
And just real quick, if you're just joining us, everybody, my guest this evening is the author of the book, The Ringer, An Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. His name is Jim Bowden. I see that some of you are just tuning in. And if you want to call in the show and ask Jim any questions, it's 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902. A few of you have been asking what the phone number is. So there you go. And feel free to call in if you have some questions for my guest, Jim Bowden. Jim, in regards to this alien mark, what is the alien mark?
Well, the example I would give is a photograph of the limousine in San Francisco. It was on the San Mateo Bridge where 9 women died. They said that it was because the gas tank blew up, and it wasn't because the engine was on fire. Nobody reported that. No media covered that at all, but you can see it clearly in the images if you go to Google. It's smoking like crazy. That thing got hit by a UFO. Now, one of the pictures, when it shows the flash from the back, it's not gasoline. It's not a gasoline explosion. It is alien. And the picture clearly shows that. That would be considered a mark, the way it looks. And it is the way it looks that is the mark. So you have to discern between what is natural and what is alien as far as a look goes. And they call it their mark.
Why wasn't this story covered? And if anyone wants to Google some photos, what would they Google?
They would, the limousine, I would say, you could put in San Francisco limousine disaster, maybe, or something like that. It was a disaster.
Explosion,
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll try to look it up, see if I can get
and also, when you do it, please notice that the engine is clearly on fire, okay? And the media never, ever, ever reported that. They said
really? What did they say then?
They said the gas tank blew up. Okay? Well, guess what? When you see the pictures, you're going to see a smoking engine. It was hit by a UFO.
Now, how do you know that? How do you know that it was hit by a UFO?
By the look, by the mark.
Okay, and tell me some more about this alien mark. Well,
actually, Rocky, that's the only way that I can distinguish, for example, a collapsed building.
Right.
There's the one that killed 500 people in India. It was a clothing factory.
Yeah.
And it had a look, okay, even after it was demolished, it had a look that made no sense whatsoever, all right, as far as a collapse goes. It just didn't make any sense. Well, that's alien. I mean, it really is. If it doesn't fall within the boundaries of a normal-looking building collapse at all, and it's outside that, way outside that, then start looking at aliens.
Okay, outside the norm. Well, and I've got some people also on Facebook posting some of their ideas, and I'll definitely share them. A few people have said that in regards to the building collapse, and they bring up, Dolores is bringing up a really good point. She's saying that HARP technology can take down a building.
Maybe it can. I don't know. I don't know much about HARP at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and, the idea of HARP can also be a tool. It's interesting. I don't think if you hadn't been through what you had been through already, Jim, that you wouldn't be able to discern the difference. Because I think as far as the general public goes, we're looking all over the place.
Roxy, you are exactly right. There is no way I could be able to tell the difference. I wouldn't know what their look was. I would have no idea. None at all.
Somebody else is asking, Sierra wants to know, could a dental artificial bone implant from December of 2012, could it contain an RFID chip?
I don't know anything about that either. I've heard that, and this interests me a little bit, I've heard that they're using organic implants. For example, you talked about the guy whose implant moved when they tried to take it out. That had to be organic. It had to be organic. Metal doesn't move.
Well, it's interesting. It's all quite fascinating. But Sierra, if you're wanting to know more about that, I will definitely be able to address that on a different show with some gentlemen who actually are dealing with finding RFID chips. So hang in there if you think you've got a chip. Now, as far as this whole, let's just back up a little bit, please, because I want something from you as far as this alien mark goes, like how we know the difference, this alien signature, so to speak.
Exactly.
There are those out there who are dealing with human technology as well. For instance, RFID chips, gang stalking. There's some of that going on. Their computers getting hacked or what have you. That humans are doing, and so. We kind of, what I'm trying to say is that, God, we're living in a world of just pure craziness right now. We got aliens after us. We got people after us. I mean, what the hell?
I know what you mean.
So and how do you obviously can tell the difference if it's the work of aliens and the work of humans.
Well, I don't really follow implants or mind control by humans. Because I don't believe in it, to be honest with you. I mean, there might be some, but, it's pretty crazy, isn't it, to say, well, let's put an implant in this guy. A human to another human? Why?
So you think that maybe the implants are alien, then, in nature?
Well, Roxy, I can't help but, for example, this keeps springing this visual in my mind right now. If you look at the nuclear cloud over the Texas fertilizer plant, that's alien. They nuked that place, and you can easily see, anybody can discern a nuclear cloud. Anybody. So take a look at that, because that was their work, and it was nuclear.
Okay. Hey, listen, I've got a caller on the line from 425, so let's bring them on to the line. Caller from 425. That sounds like Washington State somewhere. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Roxy. This is Matt from Bellevue, Seattle, Washington.
Hi, Matt. Nice to speak with you. How are you today, and how is the weather in Seattle?
Well, it's really muggy, about 85 degrees, but really cloudy, so it's a little deceptive.
You're having the same weather that we're having in Arizona. How funny. Usually we're about 25, 35, 45 degrees hotter than Washington. Welcome. Do you have a question for Mr. Bowden this evening?
Yeah, I had two questions. First off, I just heard you mention HARP, and I've been reading all over the Internet that it's been abandoned. Do you know anything about that?
That HARP has been abandoned? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really don't keep up with HARP. I don't know what it is. I don't know. The government could tell you a million things about HARP, and I think it has something to do with the weather, but that's all I know.
Yeah, there's articles all over the Internet saying they couldn't fund it, so they just abandoned it, and the Navy took it or it took over, and they're either going to demolish it or something. But, well, yeah, like you say, with the government, how do you really know? And another question I had is there was a conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura where they were investigating something in, I'm trying to remember his name, but he used to own a bunch of motel chains, and then he started investing in space. And he owns a ranch in, I want to say, like New Mexico or the Utah area, something like that. Does that ring a bell? Bob?
Not really. The only one that I think of when I think of private space enterprise is Virgin.
Okay. It could be them, but in the episode they were they took a trip out to that ranch, and then something shocked them. You know, there had been rumors of ET presences in that area. And on their way back, something got on their radio frequency claiming to be alien. And it scared them, saying, like, true evil or something on the radio frequency. And,
I believe it. They're goofy, aren't they?
Yeah. Now,
they are.
How do you know the difference between, like, governmental people playing games or an actual extraterrestrial? Or can they work together?
Well, I could tell you this. The Greys would love us to believe that anything going on like that, okay, implants or anything else, is not them, but is the government or anybody but them. That's they as far as I know, they invented reptilians and invented Palladians. Show me a Palladian body, show me a reptilian body. We don't have any. They only exist in stories. And I think the Greys made them up.
You know, that's interesting you said that. I was just, I don't know, I was watching an old Basher video on YouTube, and he said that these reptilians are genetic manipulations of the Greys. I don't know, are Greys Zeta Reticuli, or are they something else?
That's funny because I read something the other day, a guy got abducted, and they told him that they were from Sirius. That's kind of funny.
So they're just not honest.
They're liars. Those things are liars.
That's interesting. I was going to answer a question for you that you asked about HARP. If you want to learn or look up some information that's more less controversial and more factual regarding HARP, you might want to take a look into Nick Begich's work. Nick Begich, and that is somebody that worked with HARP and understands HARP. And you may very well find the information that you need. And then one of our listeners just posted that, yes, indeed, HARP was sold, but it's still operating. So just because it transferred hands, HARP technology it's still available, and they're still using it.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it's still as threatening as ever.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I would really go ahead and listen to any of the latest interviews that Nick Begich has done, because I would think you would get a deeper understanding of what it's doing, and there's other elements that are linked into it as well. So You might want to take a look at a bigger picture. And speaking of other elements, Jim, I was going to ask you about scalar technology, scalar waves, etc. Do you know anything about that? And is that ET related?
I don't know. I'm sorry, Roxy. I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And
what is it, by the way?
Well, it's another technology, and you won't know what the collider is either then, and all the rest of it, so I won't even get into it. It's going to take us off topic. So
I mostly, Roxy, just deal with the Greys on an everyday basis.
Sounds like it. You live in that world.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
That's fine. It's just a bunch of people that are interested in it. That's fine. And any more questions that you have, Seattle?
No, this is good. Great show. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, you're very welcome, and call in anytime, okay? It was Tony, right?
Matt.
Matt. Sorry, Matt. Sorry.
No problem.
I just renamed you. Your name's Tony now.
Okay, I can be Tony.
There you go. All right. Thanks for the call, Matt. Take care now.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. We certainly will. We've got a question from the chat room now, and it says, what does he think about the possibility of demonic archonic influence instead of actual alien influence?
Well, actually, it's the same thing.
It's all the same thing.
The Greys are archonic. The Greys are demonic. That's them. I mean, that's what they are.
That goes back to the tricksters that they are, doesn't it? That they just kind of reinvent themselves.
I'm going to say something, and half the audience is probably going to turn off the radio. But the Greys are responsible for the church.
Uh-oh. And what do you mean by that?
They own it. It's their invention.
Like the Vatican, Vatican City, all the rest of it.
They're
running the show.
All of it. And guess what? They're also interested in souls. And they have no couth. They're ruthless. And people who go to church usually go there because they want to do better in life or be a better person.
Right.
The Greys could care less. Pray to me, and when you die, we'll meet.
Wow. Are they sort of, are these Greys, do they have something missing, like in their DNA?
Absolutely. They're
okay.
synthetic. They're machines. They have no hearts. They don't know what love is. They have no clue. And the other thing that I would like to tell you is this. I just realized this the other day. It is true. If you're in a telepathic exchange with an entity and you're trying to figure out if they're good or bad, okay? Mm-hmm. Tell them to tell you a joke. Greys can't do it. They can't tell a joke.
Why?
They don't have it. That requires human qualities. They don't even have any idea what humor is, or on our level, and they can't tell a joke. They can't deliver a punchline. They can't do it. They wouldn't even try. It would silence them instantly. If you said, "Tell me a joke," you would hear nothing but silence.
Interesting.
And then you would know they're bad guys, not good guys.
You'd know what you're dealing with.
Exactly right. They cannot do it.
That's very interesting. My goodness. Well, yeah, I would suggest everybody tries that then. That makes sense, actually. Now, what is this? Pictures versus words in the age of Aquarius. What are we talking about there?
Well, all of this, everything we're going through now really is, due to the age of Aquarius. It really is. We're in it. It started, and now here we are. And I think that what you're going to find is what I talked about earlier is I think people are going to rely more on pictures than words in the future. I'm sure they will. ETs certainly do. They don't care about words at all. They do care about what visuals, any kind of a movie or a picture or a photograph or anything like that. But words don't really move them. I think we're going to head that way. I hope that we don't become telepathic. But I think it's inevitable that we probably will.
And why are you afraid or not wanting us to become telepathic?
Loss of innocence. Right now, we would enter their world, and currently we're in our world, and we would be more like them, and I would rather us stay like us.
I get the innocence
but
part.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Right. Well, we kind of are breaching the age of privacy. I mean, everything's getting transparent, and across the board, you know what I mean?
Well,
and don't you think that might be part of our own evolution, though, that we would be capable of being able to be responsible with our telepathy?
Well, it's very handy. If the Greys weren't around, then I'd say go for it because it's a very convenient thing that's very easily, and it's very comfortable, and sometimes it feels good and stuff like that. But
you have a call for
Nighthawk.
Press any key to accept the call.
I don't know what this is. Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, but at any rate, they are here, and because they're here, you can get in trouble with it. You can definitely get in trouble with telepathy.
Okay. Like an example of, I mean...
Well, they will weave, Roxy, they will weave you into their dream, Here's how you can tell the difference also. Don't ever trust a voice in your head, ever, never. Now, what happens is you'll think it's telepathy, and it is a voice, and you'll go along with that voice, and everything will be cool, you'll be good buddies, whatever, and then you'll realize that you're communicating with a voice. You better stop as soon as you realize it's a voice, because telepathy, there are no words, there are no voices at all, none. Not with telepathy, not with real telepathy. Mm-hmm. So stay away from voices if you ever, because that is not telepathic. A voice is not telepathic.
Well, what's telepathy then?
It's a knowing. It's instant knowing. You communicate by knowing. Each of you know what you're communicating, what your ideas are, whatever. You just know. You don't talk.
You don't hear words. That's interesting because I must validate you on that and verify a lot of the psychics and healers that I deal with refer to telepathy as the same. Honest to God, it's just a knowing. Something comes through. There aren't a lot of words, sort of like dreams. Dreams.
It is, it's not a dream. It's more
no,
like.
I understand that. I'm saying the similarity is when you wake up from a dream, it's picturesque and emotional more than it was about exact words that were exchanged.
I would say it simply registers. It just the idea or the communication simply registers within you, within your mind. And then you communicate as well, and it's just an exchange. But there are no words, and there are no voices.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Somebody is asking or saying to trust your voice if you listen to your heart. Dolores was saying, do you agree with that, or is there something else we should know?
I don't agree with it at all. I just said don't trust a voice.
And now, have you had these conversations with people? Do they get really upset about this?
No, I don't talk about it. But I really don't talk about it.
To a lot of people.
I know. No. Honestly, here's the problem. Just like with the church, with the Grays being involved with the church, if people. Spirituality is a great thing. The only problem is when you put your hands together and you pray to anything, or you chant, or you get spiritual with some spiritual entity, all right? That thing can be anybody. That entity can be anybody. You don't know who the hell you're talking to. You really don't know. And here's the sad thing. I was in San Francisco watching my sister's house. They were having some kind of seance or something like that in the kitchen. I saw what they were doing. I saw that they were communicating with spirits or something. And I yelled. I said, "You don't know who you're talking to." And she got mad at me. The next day, the kid committed suicide. So it's dangerous.
Uh-huh. And I guess I have a question. A lot of people have questions. And on the religious note, I guess I should ask this for Alan Roy. He wanted to know if you were speaking of all religions or just Christianity.
As far as I know, it's just the Bible, which happens to be magic in itself. If you hold one or whatever, I don't do it, but anyway, that's probably. To me, their worst achievement or the most deceptive, certainly their most deceptive thing they could have ever done was to pretend to be holy and good and righteous, and because we fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Now, even though the Bible, if you look at it, is filled with murder, I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to be involved with that, but they do. They get involved with it. I mean, the Old Testament's solid murder after murder. I mean, plus they had people drinking blood and eating flesh. That's not good. Now, it's symbolic, but see, for aliens, symbolism is just fine. They like that. They don't care if it's grape juice and crackers. You just said that you're going to eat some flesh and drink some blood. We like that. We're aliens. So it's an awful thing to me. It's because, again, the people who go to church are trying to be better. They're trying to be good, and look what happens to them. They get screwed over by grays.
Mm-hmm. Well, and all war really that's ever happened on this planet was in the name of some sort of god or religion. So it is interesting how. Hey, welcome back to the show. And there are so many questions coming in now between Facebook and so forth. We'll try to get to all of them. But as I was going to say to you, Jim, before we took the break, this is very interesting that you talked about this. Our evolution, human evolution. Science. There are some scientists that are now questioning. Actually, there's more than just science. Are questioning why haven't humans evolved faster than they have?
Well, I'll give you an opinion. I don't think we were the first humans. Period.
Right.
We weren't. I mean, why would you come to a planet and create a species that's never been around before? Why not use a model that's tried and true? Right? Humans have been in the universe for a long time. We weren't the first humans.
Their point is, though, what is holding us back?
Oh, I don't know. One thing, though, Rocket, no, I don't care.
You don't care?
No, I don't care. I don't even like evolution. I wish things would just stop.
Okay, I have a question for you. How do we know? How do any of us know that you're not a gray?
Because
How do we know that you're not influenced by a gray and that everything you're saying is coming from a gray? How do we know?
Well, let's see. How do you know? Oh, here, I'll tell you. I'll give you some advice right here. Here's how you can tell, okay? Everybody get their dictionaries out and look up the word influence and see what it says. Because the Grays changed it. And if I was a Gray, I wouldn't tell you that. They changed it to where it now says influence comes from the stars. It's an ethereal fluid, and it's a cult. And it comes from the stars. That's where influence comes from. That's horseshit. They influence us, and they're trying to deflect it to the stars. Think about that. And it really is in the dictionary. Look it up.
Well, it's
no influence.
Right.
No influence comes from our stars. Period.
Well,
they're stars.
Right. Well, and see, I think also a lot of people, and I encounter this all the time. People believe what they want to believe, and people believe what they've been taught to believe. And very few people have the ability to open their minds and look at other sides, let's say, of a circle or a square or a coin, that there actually is more to it than they can see. But I will say this: I do encounter belief systems all the time. And it's very difficult to have certain conversations when somebody has a belief system that will not allow them to open their minds any further than what they've been taught. But to your credit, I'm going to let you know how many people are validating your theory on religion. And Catherine is one of them. She said, Joseph Campbell, Alex Collier, and the list goes on and on. I can name a few too. So, those of you who are putting my guest down or saying he's just a fool or if he doesn't know anything about HARP, then he's a goofball. Listen, people, there are many subject matters that a lot of my guests do not pay any attention to and wouldn't know anything about. I've had guests who don't even really know what GMOs are. Okay, so it doesn't make the individual because my guest isn't studying HARP. And by the way, I'm not really just coming to your defense, Jim. It's more about opening people's minds. And so there are quite a few people in the audience tonight who are actually trying to share with other people in the audience right now that they back your theory. They're behind your theory on religion and that it's owned. And see, I think that's a big deal, Jim, because once we crack that, they say the world would fall apart if you had alien spaceships land and alien beings get out of it and then say that, religion was created by alien beings or from another planet or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Because you would crack people's belief system so deeply psychologically that they'd go crazy.
Well, Nigel Kernan is a pretty good author, and he wrote a book about how aliens' agenda is really to collect souls. Well, if you have a church, you can do that pretty well. So.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's awful. I really do. I think it's a terrible thing. There's no question about that. People are deceived all through their lives, and they die, go to heaven, except they don't go to heaven. They go wherever the grays have in mind, I guess.
Oh, they're giving lists of people that also agree. So, okay, so now we're turning the energy around. I love you, listeners. Thank you for doing that. Open your minds, because once you start shutting it down, you're not going to hear the program. And even though you did get a really good jump start, at least an hour and a half there, Jim, as far as speaking with people. And Guy actually just said, he's not a gray. He made me laugh a few times. Speaking of you. See, so people are catching on, and the other,
Roxy,
okay.
I have just you have on your list, it says aerial battles in Russia and Argentina.
Yes.
I think this is important for people to know because
aerial battles in Russia and Argentina, correct?
Yeah. Well, those are UFO fights. Okay, and it did happen in Russia. What you saw from the media and on YouTube was what they call exploding meteors, okay? Now, meteors cannot explode. Sorry. They can fall apart. They can't explode. They don't have anything. They don't have a bomb in them. They can explode. Those are UFOs. And if you watch those YouTubes, you can see how dramatic, how loud, and how dynamic their battles are. Because those were battles in Argentina and in Russia. Mm-hmm. And those were not meteors at all. Meteors can't do that. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, I just thought I'd bring that up. There's some things going on here. We have people, the reason, I don't know why Russia happened. I know that in Argentina, they were mutilating animals, and the humans got tired of it.
Yeah, what is that? What is that all about? What is that whole cattle mutilation?
Well, they care, some ETs care more about our animals than us. And so anyway, yes, cattle mutilation has made a resurgence in Argentina, but also other things, lambs and things like that, or sheep too. But they didn't like it, so they went after them, and they took one down in Argentina.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
That's really sad. Now, what's the human ET pilot's Russian black triangle story? What is that all about?
Oh, it's funny. If you understand,
it's funny?
Yeah, it is funny. He told it to me. What happened was, if you look on YouTube, you'll see where the black triangle crashed. It's in a crater. The crater it's boiling black, kind of lava looking. It's solid black, and it's about 60 feet below the crater. All right. Well, that doesn't make any. Are you there?
Hi,
yes,
I'm here.
804, please mute until call.
I'm sorry. Yeah, please don't do that. Thank you.
Hello?
I'm sorry. We have a call that, caller, can you mute for a moment?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, you ready?
I'm on the air? Yeah,
yep.
Sorry about that. Caller, can you please mute? Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
All right. At any rate, they did take down. It's not a meteor. It was a UFO. It's a black triangle that came down, and there's a gigantic crater with black-looking lava, which is the remains of the black triangle, and it's boiling, and it's about 60 feet below the crater. Well, the problem is that doesn't make any sense, because why isn't it at the top near the rim of the crater? It's 60 feet below. Or 70 feet. It's way down there. So it's very illogical looking. It doesn't make any sense. The reason it doesn't is because they employ magic. Mm-hmm. And the humans know that. Anyway, I guess one of the Greys survived this crash, okay? And he was complaining about the look because it doesn't make any sense the way it looks. And when I guess the human was flying off, and he goes, "That's your problem." To me, that's funny. That's your problem, and that's all he
your
said.
Problem.
That's
goodness.
your problem. Yeah,
that's amazing.
But I would have added Magic Boy, but nevertheless, that's what he said. That's your problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. Hey, listen, we've got one of our hosts on Revolution Radio. He also has a question for you. He's been listening in. He says that Are you saying that all aliens are deceptive or that all aliens are grays? And then he wants to know, what do you think of the prime directive theory? And that's from Steve Travesty.
I'm sorry, the last part was what?
What does he think of the prime directive theory? And I said the person who's asking the question is Mr. Steve Travesty. He's a host on Revolution Radio.
I don't know what the prime directive theory is. But as far as I know, until I know better, Roxy, and I don't know any better yet, as far as I know, everything bad here is gray. I really do believe until I see some kind of physical evidence of a reptilian or a Palladian or any other species at all, anybody, okay? There have been 17 autopsies of grays. We know they're real. We know they are. Show me one body of a reptilian. Supposedly they've been here for millions of years. Where's one body? There's not any. I think it's a story that the grays have made up to deflect blame from themselves. They can always say the reptilians did it, even though they don't exist.
You don't think they exist, really? Okay.
I don't think they exist.
And that's because you haven't seen any proof of them existing.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, so your experience has been with the grays, and listen, you're not the first, and you're not the only one. I've got quite a few books right here in my home that are really reflecting a lot of what you're talking about. Somebody that I really looked up to and met in person, Mr. Alex Collier. I mean, he's describing very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with the man, but he's also describing some very similar events, and so that's just the way it is. So caller from, let's see, 804, welcome to the show, and do you have a question for our guest, Jim Bowden?
Well, no, I would just wanted to tell my testimony about Grays and Dracos, and what it was is that I attended a U.S. Army kindergarten in Berlin, Germany, when the wall was built, and I was 3 years old then, and I had a flashback of this thing that happened when another family was visiting us in high school, which was going without any effort, being completely awake, going through a tunnel, like a portal opening up. It seemed to, time seemed to, stand still, sort of, it should have been more time than it actually was because I had a record on. And so I went through a tunnel for about 20 minutes, just opened up. It felt wonderful. Then I saw stars. Then I arrived at a planet that seemed to be the moon. And I saw human bones being thrown. And then I came up behind this very tall being with monk's robes on, and it had very long fingers, it was humanoid, very tall, very long fingers. It was writing in a very old book, like an old Bible, and it saw me, and it put its thoughts directly into my mind, and it said, "What are you doing here? And I'll kill you at the same time." And I experienced myself as, a little 3-year-old child, very cute, and it wanted to kill me. And its face was really horrible. It had skin stretched very, very thin, like a sharp, craggly teeth, like a serrated knife. And it was very angry and, sort of shock, anger. And a person who is psychic said, this was a Draco. It was sending a transmission. I intercepted it, and it was killed because of this. And I intuited that, because I did experience myself at about 3 years old then, and that's how old I was when they built the Berlin Wall, I intuited that, it was the souls of the people killed escaping the Berlin Wall. And people have told me that on the moon they recycle human souls. Peggy Kane talked about that. Emily Elizabeth Craig talked about that. although she did say had stopped, I don't know about that, but that is what I saw. That is my testimony, what I saw. Now, I also had experiences with grays who I did not experience as harmful. So everybody has different experiences, and the fact that this Draco was killed because of this, and I also had another experience with a reptilian.
Hold on, let Jim have a chance to actually comment on what you just said. What do you think about that, Jim?
Well, over time, I mean, grays can be civil, so it's not a bad experience. However, I wouldn't trust them at all. I don't care how civil they are.
Oh, it's not like I trusted them when I had experience. The only thing I remember is 2 experiences with grays, and one was I remembered it as a dream, and then there were things in the regular 3D world which made me. I mean, somebody could have another experience totally. And I would believe them. That's their experience. I'm just telling you my experience. My experience was that they are more like nurses or worker bees or helpers. I didn't experience them as harmful. Now, that's not to say that they are not harmful. I'm just saying that was my experience. And maybe
I understand,
maybe I might recover other experiences in which they were, but I haven't recovered those. I don't have that. But I have another. Can I tell you one other experience with the reptilian?
Go ahead. We've got other people on the line. That's okay.
I went into I do Reiki, and I went into Reiki with a young man, and there are many people that I know who say not all reptilians are bad. That very likely may be the case. I haven't had that experience. So I mean, I always looked at it, if you could be in Vietnam and you could see all Caucasians or black people as bad because they're coming at you with guns, but that doesn't mean the whole civilization is. So I can only talk about what I saw and experienced. And what happened, I went into Reiki with this young man, and we connected with a reptilian library lady from the 11th dimension who was handing me books, showing me books that were in like energetics. And she was telling me how the reptilians terraformed this earth. And, it's like all about plants and things like that. Everything was lovely. But then after, and she said, there are Dracos that haven't ascended. She's saying, this stuff they really should try to ascend. And so this is what she was telling me, but after that, I noticed that there were like these energetic cords connected to my left forehead. So that's all I have to say, and so you have to just go case by case, but I think that there is a very big program Alfred Weber talked about this, that he and Ayanna Biggs had gone psychic, and the party that Stephen Bassett and Carrie Cassidy were at, they said that they were abducted, and the party was over a military base, and there was just this strong program being put out about Dracos being good and reptilians being good. And it is possible that there might be some that are, but my experience, no. And even this 11th dimensional reptilian library lady tricked me.
Wow.
So I would say,
well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the call, and thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Could I mention, Roxy, one thing?
Yes.
Grays can transform into anything. A banana split, if they want to.
I've heard that, too. I've heard that, too.
Reptilian. They can be a reptilian. They can be anything they want to be. A princess, a tree. I don't know. They're magic. They're all about magic.
Sure, absolutely. And for those who are like also chatting in, writing in, all the rest of it, I also this is a real hot topic right now, and there are some people that are getting a little bit confused. I think I'm not sure if they're joking. Alan, if you're joking, let me know. But Alan Roy is saying, he believes that the aliens, the Greys, were genetically made here on Earth, and then Guy Wesley is saying that when he says, referring to you, the look. Would that be like the randomness of the artifacts like at Puma Punku?
He's close. Yeah, I think so, maybe. I don't see an alien presence at Puma Punka, but but certainly Puma Punka comes into play when we think about extraterrestrials. You know, I don't see necessarily a mark there. When I say a mark, it's more like an after effect or the look after an accident, after a tragedy, after a disaster, what is left behind, or even during the process. There can be a look in as well, or mark. They call it a mark. But no, as far as looking at some old stones at Puma Punka, I couldn't see anything there.
Mm-hmm. And as far as this whole idea that all aliens are Greys, that was something that was talked about a lot in the 80s. I don't know if you know that, Jim. Every speaker I saw was saying the same thing, and then all of a sudden we had the tall whites, and we have the these, and the Dracos, and the this, and the that, like our caller just called in and told the two different stories, things like that. So do you think it's possible? I mean, why wouldn't we have I had a guest that said there's 150 different species of aliens on the planet. I mean, which one's right? Which way do we go here?
Well, I know. I heard the guy from the Army, I think he said there were like 57 species on Earth. That's what he said.
Right.
Well, I guess the truth is this. Until they make themselves known in some way, here, not in outer space, not in a story, but here. When a reptilian does something and, we can see, somehow identify this to be a reptilian, this to be a Palladian, this to be, I don't know what a Draco is, but maybe this to be a Draco, then as far as I'm concerned, the only evidence we have, and it's really evidence, are Greys. There is no other evidence.
Okay, gotcha. I see what you're saying. All right. And you're not alone in that stance, so... I wish people just kind of get through that, get through that for a moment. That you're not the first to report something.
But I'm using actually Western scientific empirical analysis here. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means show me anybody other than a Gray, because that's all we have. We have bodies of Greys. We can see them. We know what they look like. We know what they're made of.
Right.
And we don't have that with anything else, Roxy. There are no other ETs that we can say that about. So until there are, I can't say that there are any other ETs until, we have some kind of proof.
Absolutely. If you were, we've got like a minute and a half left, and I want to ask you one question. How do you keep smiling and joking and being so loving? And what can you share with the rest of us to keep our heads high?
Well, there are human extraterrestrials. I don't know that they came from here. Maybe they came from Atlantis. I don't know where they came from. But they are human. And they help me a great deal. And I don't know what it would be like without them, to be honest with you. I'd have to deal with Greys only telepathically, and that'd be a drag. So they're very gracious and very fun, and they like us. They took out that UFO that was mutilating our animals. So they're on our side. And I think that, I don't know why, but I have a gut feeling that we're going to get some help, extraterrestrial help.
Really? We're going to get some help? And
I think so.
You just kind of feel it, huh?
Yeah, it seems it's too one-sided. There's too much evil going on in the U.S. It's not really everywhere else, not all over the whole planet, just here. I mean, it's like Alfred said, they have targeted this place.
Nightmares, or you've been taken out of your body at night and taken somewhere else that you did not sign up to go to. If you are one of these people, this is what I want to say to you right before this show, because what Jim has to talk about is kind of spooky. I don't want you to be afraid. That's what I'm saying to you. I do not want you to be afraid. I want you to know that we're here to help. And I want you to know that we are aware of a global something going on, whether it be alien technology or human technology. To me, it doesn't matter. Both are violations and both are crimes against humanity, no matter what or who designed them. So keep that in mind during the course of this show this evening of what Jim is going to reveal more of. And let me give you just a little bit of background on Jim so that it qualifies Jim to even have this conversation with all of us, okay? Again, he is linked up on the Truth Denied website. Now, again, he has the book recently is out on Amazon. We have all the information if you want to purchase the book. The book is called The Ringer. The Ringer was published in October of 2012. And listen, in April of 2012, astronomers Paul Davies and Robert Wagner, who are affiliated with Arizona State University, filmed 5 large UFOs flying over the surface of the moon. I'm going to stop right there for a moment. We recently had Jose Escamilla, Bill Brayson, and Sean Gautreaux on the show. They are also talking about the moon. They are also talking about action on the moon. So you'll have a lot of people who are experiencing and documenting some facts. Major James Norton. He was a little bit older, but everybody else was fairly younger. So they all told me about what mind control was with MK Ultra and all the rest of it, and even what the military had done and some of the stuff that they didn't know what was real and what was real and what wasn't real. And then you've got the gang stalking. I've worked with people like Jesse Beltram has been on the show, and Lars Drudgard from Denmark, who are also working with scanning individuals for communication devices or RFID chips. And these individuals all have one thing in common. They're being basically stalked via the internet when they go anywhere in person, and a little bit of mind control that causes them a lot of stress. And it's I get a lot of emails about this too. We interviewed 2 wonderful women in Europe, Melanie Rachon, who is now heading up is part of the movement in Belgium, as well as Marie Pollock, who also was somebody who was having issues with possibility of gang stalking and being chipped. I want you to know I do thorough conversations and investigations with these individuals, and it is a bloody shame what is happening all over the world. Some of them are, this is American technology, or it's human technology. And then, of course, my guest tonight is going to talk about alien technology. I'd like you to keep an open mind if you are one of these individuals who has this issue, meaning that you are sure that you are being stalked, or you are sure that something is going on and that you are being misguided, or your dreams are being taken away from you and being replaced with night. The movie was Communion. Any of you remember that? It scared the heck out of me because he had some really nasty interactions with aliens. But he was asked last night, were they benevolent or, whatever. And he said, they weren't all that bad, but he didn't have the best, once he got to know them over the 11-year period. But he did feel they were dangerous. And I thought that was really interesting of Whitley Schreiber to say. So what I want to convey to you as well is that I'm getting a lot of people who write in about gang stalking or RFID chips. Whitley Schreiber has a chip in the back of his right ear, behind his ear, and he talked about that last night too. He's never had it removed. A doctor tried to remove it many years ago, and when the doctor tried to remove it, the chip moved further up the behind of Whitley's ear, and then it went back to where its old location was over time. So he's never had it successfully removed. But I want to say, when we're talking about this subject matter, of course, we talked about it on Friday's show, last Friday's show, with Alfred Weber as well. There are different types of control. There's, MK Ultra that the military used. And of course, I interviewed a military man who worked out of Fort Benning, actually 4 of them, who the last of them has now died May 30th, John Vesques, God rest his soul. All of those gentlemen within a year and a half of my interview. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not trying to have that point put across. My point is all of them are dead now. They have passed on, and they were younger, so except for Captain Sergeant James. I want to warn you about this show this evening. Not warn, I want to do something like a disclaimer. My guest has been on before, and you are all very interested in him and his work. He is the author of a book called The Ringer, and of course that is located on the Truth Denied website. And of course he's all linked up on the Truth Denied website, so feel free to go and download any of the information. We will have an article on this particular show probably up by tomorrow, and of course the archive. Listen up though. It is amazing the amount of people that I'm speaking with in the last couple of months who are talking about people like James Gilliland, who are talking about the Archon race, people like my guest, Jim Bowden, who are talking about alien mind control and such. Even Whitley Strieber was on Coast to Coast last evening, and he was talking about a few things. And of course, he has not had, he was asked the question last night, Whitley Strieber was, he was asked the question if he found the beings to be, a good experience for him. He had experiences with alien beings for 11 years. He had a very controversial book that was turned into the movie as well. And it scared the heck out of me when I first saw it, I got to tell you. I'm losing the name of the movie now. If anybody knows it, just post it in the chat room, or Thomas, if you know it. I can't remember the name of the movie at the moment. It's slipping my mind. But anyway, the point is it was about his abductions. And when Whitley Strieber came forward with that movie and the book, he was, really put down for being crazy or whatever. Thank you, Thomas. For all of us. Proof for all of us. Again, James Gilliland, his recent video that I published with him, again, just in June, these objects that are flying around in our skies that don't appear to be even exotic military aircrafts because of how they're moving around and how far out in the stratosphere they are. So many different people are coming together on this planet and putting forth some incredible information, as my guest this evening will. Now, even though Paul Davies is a theoretical physicist and a cosmologist who's now involved in astrobiology, and Robert Wagner is affiliated with ASU's School of Earth and Space Exploration, U.S. mainstream media did not consider this scientific research to be newsworthy. Again, what I want to say in here is that alternative media is beginning to pick up the gap of where mainstream media globally will not report. So it is very important that radio stations like Revolution Radio continue to stay on the air, continue to put out the evidence and the facts to you, the public. This is very important for all of us together as humanity goes to stick together. All right? We must stick together, and we must continue to support either by listening or sharing the information with others so that more and more people